is though, some adults don't even understand what they want to do. So that's the
Exactly.
kind
So
of
how
thing
can
they
a
Just said it.
child?
but see,
She just said it. Blossom just said it. She just said it. Some adults don't even know what they want. So how can a child know what they want? Hey everybody, welcome to Unqualified. My name is Alex and I'm unqualified to give you any advice, but I hope you listen anyway. The show's a little bit about everything, anything, and nothing all in between, so let's rub the Italian horn and the chili pepper for some good luck, and let's get started. All right, so first off, points to you if you get who I'm dressed up as. Happy Halloween. It's not Halloween yet, but it is spooky season, so this is the time where I dress up. Or I identify as Louise. Just kidding, I don't. But anyway, that would be a cool person to identify as. Anyway, today I'm going to react to the viral trans conservatives versus trans liberals debate from Middle Ground from the Jubilee channel. All right. So before we get into that, like, comment, subscribe on this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit that notification bell for more content, and I will bring it your way. All right. So let's throw it to the screen and get started. Okay, guys, this is the trans conservatives versus trans liberal debate. Let's get started.
For trans women to share a female restroom.
Absolutely. It is a safety concern for trans women to share female restrooms. Why? Because creepy men will take advantage of this opportunity. Creepy men will say, I'm trans. I'm trans. You can't touch me. I'm trans. That's why.
Can the agreeers please step forward?
Before we been asked around a show that
Let's get into the.
It depends.
yes.
Yeah,
So I think that to start it off though too is it's not necessarily saying that trans women. It all comes down to self-ID.
Yep.
When we moved into a self-ID process, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of men just simply self-IDing into being trans women to utilize the female restroom and to harm women.
Exactly.
Or
That's the
just
biggest
be
thing.
there. They're getting arousal from just being there.
You know, there's a photo
Getting
or there's a
arousal.
video
That's
that
the
went
problem.
viral, I think like just 2 weeks ago, with some like
By the way, I am a fan of Blair White. So if you don't like that, you can, well, you can just sit with that. I don't care if you don't care. Let's just put it that way. I'm a huge fan of Blair White. She's pretty awesome. So if you don't like that, well, that's your problem.
whole man with a boner in the women's restroom, and there's just some poor woman filming it. Like, am I just supposed to like accept that this
That's
is here?
horrible.
So I think there's levels to it. I think that trans women who are actually trans, you know, we're talking gender dysphoria, transitions, making the effort, you know, probably once you reach a certain point in your transition where you can actually assimilate within that space and not cause a disruptance, that would probably be the ideal time to start doing that, right?
Exactly.
Whereas, you know, a cross-dresser who is emboldened to, in this current climate, say that they're trans because now anything is trans if you say so, that person should probably stay absolutely out of women's restrooms because you're there to get your rocks off and the women are there to take a poop and a pee.
Yep.
So it's not the same. And you know, I really empathize with women who, you know, have an issue with it. And I can probably hear some women commenting, well, how do I know the difference between a
can't.
fetishist and a real trans person? It's hard. It's hard. However, that's the only nuance that I know to give to it, which is there's different reasons people are trans, and some people really are trans because they're horny, and some people are trans because they really felt that way from, you know, a young age or whatever.
See, I agree to an extent. Like when you go to transition, and this is a fairly universal experience. You know, once you get to a certain point of passing, that's about the time that you would start going into the other bathroom, as opposed to not make the same sex uncomfortable.
Right.
once you reach that point in your transition, a lot of things change, but you start to see things from another perspective. You start to see things from the perspective of a cis person.
Yeah.
And I actually
Exactly.
offer some solutions to this because I believe the free market can handle all of this.
It's so sad that we have to gatekeep. Like I'll say that. It is so sad that we have to gatekeep. And I feel bad. I do. But at the same time, we need to make sure women are safe.
This stuff because in government run and government funded buildings, there should always be a third space for us to use.
By third space, do you mean like family bathrooms or like what do you mean by third space? I don't understand.
And I do when I go to the Capitol and stuff like that, I always use third spaces. But I think that private property owners can make the rules for their establishment and figure out how to enforce those rules.
I mean, I
they're
wouldn't
not- they're
say
not
third
being allowed,
spaces for
though.
trans
Exactly.
people.
Like we're in a
just
state
in
right
general.
now. We're in a state right now where you have to allow anybody to use whatever restroom they want.
If you're a decent human being, you do what causes the least disturbance. So, for
Exactly.
example, I filmed a YouTube video a few years ago where I entered a men's restroom just because I was responding to comments who were like, well, maybe you should use a men's restroom if you really feel like the way you feel. And so I said, okay, let's do it. Let's put a camera. And I was kicked out within seconds of the entire establishment, and it was a whole ruckus. So that's what I mean by if you're a decent person, you do what causes the least amount of problems for people around you. And if you're, a moral person, you're going to be conflict avoidant in general when it's something like that, right? It's like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
what's the point of causing issues for anyone?
That's what it comes down to. Do you want to be conflict avoidant or do you want to have a conflict? I'm not saying that trans people look for conflict. I'm not saying that. But do what causes the least conflict. Yeah, it might cause it might cause you to be uncomfortable. But until you work on yourself to the point where you're not uncomfortable and other people aren't uncomfortable, then, you know, like oh my god. Here's the thing. Okay, I've had it where I've been the problem in my life. Story time. I have had it in my life where I have been the problem. Not that might not be a surprise to a lot of you, but I have been the problem where I've made people uncomfortable. And so I had to work on myself to make sure I didn't make other people uncomfortable. And so I made sure that I made sure I didn't make myself uncomfortable either. Because if other people are uncomfortable, I'm uncomfortable. But for other people, seeing other people uncomfortable, they don't give a crap because they're selfish. That's why. So I'm not saying all trans people are selfish, but you're pretty selfish if you're gonna. You're pretty selfish, bless me. Um, you're pretty selfish if you're gonna walk around expecting everybody to accept the way you are, especially if you're barely passing as a woman.
Especially if you're really just trying to pee,
I think just put
get
your
it
head down,
done.
go in, get out.
Right.
Can the disagreeers please step forward?
Here we go.
I want to comment on Blair's point. The one thing I kept hearing through all of the nuance is passability.
I never
Because
said that.
ultimately, when we talk about passability, it determines how you get harassed in the bathroom. Because honestly, if you don't look so passable or whatnot, people are going to say, "Oh, that's a man with a dress on," and then there's going to be discourse. But the reality of it is, honestly, who cares who's trans and who's cis going in the bathroom? You
Women care.
should be minding your own business, being able to pee and do your business in peace for the most part. That conversation around this man with a boner on or whatever like that, I saw that picture and I thought to myself, that's really a right-wing talking point and conservative propaganda because that's their ideology
How is it
when
It
it
was a
comes
thing
to
that
trans.
happened.
I'm speaking. That's their
Ooh,
ideology when it comes
look
to
at the way that she's like, I'm speaking. That's authority problems. She has problems with authority, and I'm not saying she does have problems with authority, but she likes to be the authoritative one.
to trans is because conservatives have a basic level understanding of what transness is in the first place.
Yes, because we
And with
understand
all
what
due
the truth
respect, I do
is.
not think any of you are basic, but they
Yes,
use
she
you as
does.
the baseline to amplifying this propaganda.
How
I
is
just
it
ask you a question?
propaganda if it's a thing that really happened? It was caught on video. Like it was
Exactly.
an actual occurrence. It wasn't
Okay.
It's
staged.
truth.
It happened, and that's not the only. It's not an isolated
But
incident.
that's not enough for me to say because actors can do that. Who knows? They could have been an actor trying to make a point against trans people. But this has always been our battle. It's just like, from what I just heard you were saying with your talking points, because I did understand what you were saying. I just got the word passability out of
That's
there.
because
And
Which
that's
I
all
didn't
you
say that word
wanted
at
to
all.
no,
hear.
I'm
No,
saying
he
that
said
word.
passability.
I'm saying
That's all
She
you
didn't
wanted
say
to
it. He
hear,
did.
Blossom.
And the
I'll say
problem,
it.
the left,
okay, I can't.
the
I
problem
couldn't
with
hear.
the
I just couldn't hear it back then.
Lol.
the
But no, what I was
liberals,
saying
the
was,
liberals always use the.
yeah. No, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying you said that word. What I was getting out of what you were saying, the one word that was coming to me was passability. This is Blossom saying it. And so passability politics is really a thing in our trans community, especially when we come to the debate of restrooms.
Well, you can say it's politics, but actually it's just real life, right? It's just about
Correct.
where
I
you're
agree.
able to assimilate to and where you're not. And I think one of the biggest problems in the trans community is the community by and large has seemed to reject assimilation and seems hell-bent on
That's not true.
I think it's
True.
absolutely true, which is you see people talking about how you don't need to work on your transition at all to enter women's restrooms. And I think that that is so selfish.
That drives me
So
Thank
it's
crazy.
so
you.
disregarding of women who may or may not feel
But the
uncomfortable.
trans woman experience is not monolithic. So who are we
I
to
never said it was.
police transness? Why are we policing other people's transness
I'm
and
just
how they
listening to
show up?
women.
We have to
But why,
protect women.
why are y'all policing though? That's what I don't understand.
But you're using words
there's
that we're
no-
not using. It's not policing. We're listening
is
to women.
policing.
And if you have 50%, we won't say 50%, but if you have a large chunk of the population of women saying that they are uncomfortable with a certain thing, a good person leans in and listens.
So
They
why are
don't
you
just
not listening
reject
to
it.
other trans women, Blair?
I
think
do
that's
all day. I am
okay.
right
So,
now.
but you didn't, and I'm not trying to be combative or whatever like that.
She's not trying to be combative. As she's like, I'm speaking.
I'm just trying to figure out, you know what I'm saying, what the middle ground would be between you and I, because you said one side and that's great, but what about the side of trans women? If we're not bringing both sides into this conversation,
Here's what I would say
then it
then.
is unbalanced.
Here's what I would say then, because I do understand both sides. I didn't, I'm almost a decade into my transition, which means I was one time a year in, 6 months in, 2 months in. So I understand that. But I also knew at the very beginning of my transition that if I'm not at a place physically where I'm not making people feel uncomfortable or I'm making people uncomfortable, then
Right?
that's on me. That's my
Correct.
responsibility to make sure that I'm going places a certain way to make sure that they're comfortable.
Because it's for
It
your
was my
safety
respons-
also too, right? Would
Well,
you also
you
say
can-
that you're safe?
Well,
Your
I know
safety
that
plays a part.
you seem to be looking at through the lens of always trans being the priority. I'm looking
Exactly.
at through the lens of women being the priority here. There's
But
plenty of situations
Why? I just want to know
because
why
it's them who
around
would
that.
fall victim to not actual trans women, as I said, but people posing as trans women,
I have an
people who
answer.
are
But
actually
trans women are
trans.
also victims of that as well.
I'm sorry. I would love it if the two of you have said your piece, and I would love to hear.
Yeah,
from the
everybody
other
Yeah,
else
yeah. I
needs
just
to
want to
talk.
make this
Nobody else
point.
is
I just want to
talking.
make this point as well. But trans women also experience violence and also
No
need that
doubt.
protection. And so that's the
No
thing.
doubt.
Like it should be an even playing field. I'm not saying you're wrong, but what I'm saying is I would like to challenge you to expand to make sure you're being inclusive of both sides or whatever, because
I
we
am.
gotta
But
have we
consider
have
this.
to have these important conversations between cis women and trans women.
I
And,
mean, I
and I'm
think-
just gonna say, and I'm not gonna just say cis women. I'm gonna say women, biological women. I want to make it inclusive of everyone.
I think the middle ground though is, and I feel like I'm not coming at this from an extreme place. I feel like an extreme place would be like no trans women in the bathroom ever. That's the extreme position. I'm saying work on your transition,
Exactly.
take it as your responsibility, and be respectful. And that's the middle ground, right?
This is a self-preservation issue, right? So if somebody's in the bathroom and they have a boner, that looks bad on all of us. And when people when our community is not calling that out and not saying that this is
But
wrong,
I'm just
No,
to
I
your
get
point.
it.
How many cases has that occurred?
it happens.
That-
It happens.
It just takes one. It just takes one. And that's all it should take.
A lot. We see it's happening all the time.
No, I
There-
have to
there are-
actually see.
there are-
I have to
there
actually
are
see
Twitter
data.
accounts.
I'm sorry, because the
Mhm.
back and
Yeah.
forth goes everywhere.
I mean, there's Twitter accounts with millions of followers that show this stuff multiple times
Okay,
a
now I
day.
know what we're talking about. Okay.
And so we're showing that these types of things do actually cause harm to trans people. So if you're looking at it at a trans lens and to say what are we doing, we need to combat that stuff and come together to combat
It
that
does
stuff.
not encompass the entire trans experience.
No,
and
you're
that's all I
right.
just want to say.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of different points from everybody here. Honestly,
What the hell are you doing here, sir? This is a trans conservative versus trans liberals debate. I'm going to keep that highlighted right there. Trans. The hell you doing here?
like I can understand like how some women may feel unsafe with men in the restroom. Men, when I say men, I mean men. I'm not talking about trans women. So being a non-binary person that sometimes
Non-binary. This is, like I said, a trans debate.
has the choice to either go into a men's restroom looking like this. You can look at me.
I
Looking
wouldn't look at you.
like
It's just
this.
interesting. I thought this was a trans
Thank
debate.
you,
That's
Blair.
what I
Don't
thought.
even.
Non-binary
That's what I
people
thought. No,
are
I will
part of
fall
the
under
trans
trans
I will say
umbrella.
that.
No, they don't.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe you could educate yourself a little bit
I
on
think
that,
I think I
and
could
maybe
educate
then you
you.
would figure
I think I
out,
could educate
you know,
you.
what the
right?
reality is.
I'm
and what
sure
trans
there's
actually
a
means.
non-binary Jubilee episode.
Well, it's
Well, because it's not a debate about who is really trans and who is not.
It can be.
We're talking about restrooms. As a trans non-binary person,
What the hell is a trans non-binary person? Somebody explain that to me. Sorry, I got the sniffles. Okay, and people might get mad at me for this, but I don't understand what non-binary is. I really don't understand it. And I believe I have a friend who is non-binary, and I don't understand what they are. I and I say they because I'm trying to use the correct pronouns. I don't even know if they go by they, but since they're non-binary, I'm assuming they go by they. I need to check in with them to see if they go by them or if they go by her, or I'm really not sure. Um, God, I mean, like I should ask her what non-binary means to her, but honest to God, because I have trans friends, so I understand what the trans experience is, at least the trans woman experience is. But I can't wrap my head around non-binary. You're a man on Tuesday, and then on Friday you feel like a woman. Feel like a woman. I totally sang that wrong. I feel like a woman. And so you feel like a woman, but you dress like this, and you dress like a damn clown. I think it's androgyny because sometimes the women cut their breasts off, and men dress like clowns like this. You know, I really don't understand. I think it's androgyny. And they say it's trans because they want to fall under that umbrella of oppression. I think that's what it is.
when I go into a place that only has men's and women's restrooms, and I'm dressed like this,
Mhm.
my choice to go into the men's restroom at that point puts me in danger.
6 years ago when I've transitioned almost 8 years ago, but 6 years ago, it was never an issue for me to use the women's room. Girls would literally drag me in there with them and say, "Girl, you need to be in our bathroom." And I was like, I felt uncomfortable back then. I don't pass. I know I don't pass. So that
I would do that too. If I saw a person who clearly didn't pass, like if I saw a man that clearly didn't pass, I would say, "Hey, is that the right bathroom you're going into?" And then I would leave it on them to decide.
That's a me problem. And I'm not going to turn my fear of being attacked in the men's room into a woman's problem. It's still a me problem. So I need to work on myself. And it sucks. Does it suck? Yes, it sucks. I don't pass. I know I don't pass. But I still respect women enough, and some trans people aren't capable of handling themselves against a man, but I am confident in my ability to do that. And not everybody can. I get that. But it's just now, 6 years ago, I used to use women's room. Now I don't, because women have spoke out. They've come out and said, we're not comfortable. There's too many self-ID'd people out there
That's
just
the problem, self-ID. That's the problem.
taking advantage. And I choose to use the men's room to protect them.
I can definitely actually almost empathize with a lot of trans women and their experience in the bathroom and a lot of the turmoil with going in and especially with passability. But the layer that I feel like in the conversation that's missing here is actually trans men. And also the fact that I was born biologically female, and a lot of the things that trans women experience of violence in the bathroom is what I experienced as a child. So the reason why my education here is not necessarily to create an idea that I need to conform to Eurocentric standards. Myself, I'm a 6 foot tall trans man, size 13 shoe. So I don't fit into the Eurocentric standards of what a woman is, and I never did as a child. I was, bullied relentlessly for this and isolated from many spaces. So this discussion about trans women being in the restroom also affects biological women, because guess what? Biological women come in all shapes and sizes. There are a lot of lesbian women that deal with this issue that I've related with and empathize, because we both get pulled out of the restroom and thrown and guys try to beat us up because we're in a restroom with women. And then on top of it, to add that layer that it's not even being discussed in any mainstream, that this is just completely wiped out, and that you're standing up for women, but you're not standing up for women children. You're not standing up for biological females that are children. You're only standing up for what really affects you. And it's kind of sad that the idea that passability is you need to work on your transition. A lot of folks, especially in our community, have no access to finances, resources, jobs to even get their foot in the door, to get access to hormones. So you're putting all of these barriers just for them to be able to go to the restroom, which is a natural thing that we all have to do. So what do I need to do? Piss outside? Because that's how
They have the Shiwi. You know, that cup thing that you for women that they put, you put in your kuka and then you just pee like a man. They got that.
I was treated my entire childhood.
I would.
I'm just gonna say it right here. Being bullied throughout your childhood for being a being a tall girl with size 13 feet, that's no reason to be trans. I mean, to each their own, to each girl their own, but uh, I it's the same argument as, "Oh, that boy likes pink. That boy likes Barbies. Well, he must be trans." It's no reason to be trans if you're bullied. And I know being trans is coupled with trauma, but I don't know. It's just it's I, I don't know. It just doesn't sit well with me.
I just feel like when this whole topic comes up, like, it obviously goes back to, like, there's dudes, like, jerking off in the bathroom, and, like, to me, like, when I hear that, I'm like, "Okay, like, but that's not trans women." So, when we talk about this
Mhm.
conversation, and it seems like the fear is, like, literally cisgender straight men who are being creeps, and what sucks is cis straight men can be, like, creepy, and then it's like trans women, trans men are, like, paying the price for that, and I
Agreed.
feel like you know what? That's what's really hard about it, is because then I think people get the idea, or some people have the belief trans women are just like, they're just men in dresses, you know what I mean? But at the end
But
of the
they
day,
are.
like, for so many trans women and so many trans men, the safest place for them is the bathroom that aligns with their gender. And if you go to a place where it's illegal to do
Aligns with the gender. He didn't specify. Aligns with the gender that they want to be or aligns with the gender that they are. You got to specify, Sasha.
do that, or you have to go on like, what's your ID or like your birth certificate. It puts you in an objectively unsafe situation. And for me, like I'm like, if I walk in the women's room, I mean, I know I like look like a lot, like I look 12, but like I feel like someone would be like, get out of here, you know what I mean? But like that's the vibe. Like I think you got to remember like when we're talking about it and we're talking about like these creepy dudes like in the bathroom.
Here's
They're
the
not
middle
trans
ground.
women.
Here's the middle ground.
Mhm.
Y'all ready? We're gonna be so happy with this. This is the middle ground. We all actually agree. It's men that are the problem.
Yes.
Yep.
It's not trans women, real trans women. However,
Yes.
the problem is our community has really eroded any barriers to actually being trans in the sense of your average crossdresser can identify as a trans woman.
That is
But then it's
true.
not a trans woman.
Well, I'm
Well-
glad you feel that way. I feel that way as well. I agree with you wholeheartedly. However, with the state of the political correctness within the trans community, you can't really say that. Like that
Wait,
person
Correct.
is this
is
person
and
saying
they're
they're a
self-ID.
cross-dresser?
They're being
No, I
protected.
No,
actually
they
agree.
say that they're trans, but they're a crossdresser.
I actually do agree with you, Blair, 100%.
I take mine back.
Because
Wow.
that's one of those things. Yeah, I told you, I'm
Let's
really
go.
like that.
Oh my God.
And the reason why I say that is because sometimes when we self-identify, some people can take advantage of that. And that
Yes.
is something, unfortunately, that we cannot control.
It
But we
took
have to
them
combat it
15
with
minutes,
facts,
16 minutes
with
to come around
research,
to that.
and with the information that is presented in front of us. It seems like we're the ones that's teaching everybody else because we live in a predominant cis world. We're teaching them about us. And I just really think we cannot afford to be intellectually dishonest about our experiences as trans people.
There is something that I think we can do. There's solutions to this. Like I do think that something like you have to be on hormones or something like that for 2 years or something before you can even change your ID, like across the board. That would eliminate the cross-dressers from being able to go there because then you can say,
I
hey,
agree
my
with
ID
that.
says this, and and so it shows that you've actually taken steps. It doesn't.
Yeah, but liberals will be like, oh my God, you're going to make me ID. You're going to make me ID myself and show identification. Oh my God. They're gonna freak out over that. And so are conservatives. They're gonna be like, you're gonna make me show ID to go to the bathroom. They'll freak out. People will freak out.
It's not about passability. It's about how long you've actually been taking the steps to transition.
I mean, they did that with COVID. Everybody freaked out when, you had to show your vaccination card. What do you think the response would be to that?
I support the transgender military ban. Agreeers?
No.
I think that oftentimes when you talk about
to
trans people in the military, people forget
listen.
that most places, if we're talking about feet on the ground and really going into war zones, are really dangerous for trans people. And so it's really an extra risk.
You're talking about the culture that exists over
Yeah,
there.
the Middle
Yeah.
East.
I would say I would maybe step forward because here's the thing. If you're trans, you need medicine, correct? Correct. How are you going to get your medicine on the front lines? How are you going to get your medicine, you know, when you're dropping in to Gaza going to fight Hamas? How are you going to get your meds on the front lines when you're dropping into the tunnels? You know, when you're dropping into the tunnel systems. If you know what I mean, put down in the comments. But I don't understand. How could you go into the military and be trans? I understand. I'm not saying you don't have the right to. Every American has the right to serve in the military. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You know, logically, it doesn't make sense because you wouldn't have your medication. You clearly have mental issues. Do you really want to give someone who's trans a gun? No offense, Blair. No offense. But do you really want to give someone who has mental issues a grenade? Really?
Just,
Yeah,
it's like
so
that's not exactly
the
trans
friendliest
friendly.
place
It's
for
actually
us,
the
yes.
opposite. The medications that we take sometimes put us in conflict with being able to actually be combat ready.
Mhm.
But there is some nuance here, obviously. Like if there was a trans cook or a trans medic, I'm not
Okay.
exactly going to be upset. But for the most part,
I,
when it
I,
comes to combat,
I hate supporting like what you just said. I hate supporting it because it goes to the narrative of the should athletes compete in sports, but
trans athletes,
yeah,
they
the
shouldn't.
drugs we take do weaken us, so we're
Hilarious.
not, like you just said, combat ready, but we're also not as physically strong as the guy counterparts standing right next to us.
And I
so-
will say, like,
true.
as a person
That's true. You're not as physically strong enough as the enemy because you're taking hormones that are wrecking your body, that are making you weaker. Whether you're male or female, transitioning to be a male or female, you are taking hormones that are wrecking your body because they don't belong in your body. So it's making you weaker. So why would we allow those people to fight and be in combat? Like Blair said, if there was a trans cook, if there was a trans medic, if there was a trans secretary, sure. But otherwise, no, not in combat.
with HIV, I was diagnosed at 18. I couldn't go into the military,
That's a shame.
because I couldn't get Biktarvy overseas.
Yeah. So I will say, as probably the only person that served in the military on this
Yeah.
entire
Yeah.
panel,
You should
Well,
speak
thank
first.
you, Jason.
it's okay. The thing about it is, I think that there is a lot of nuance in this. I actually have friends that are currently serving in the military. I think there was a lot of misrepresentation of what the trans ban actually did. You have soldiers, if you have surgeries, they go on profile, which means they can't actually do their job. They can't do PT. If you have bottom surgery, it takes a year. And so as a leader, that person's filling a position of a job.
I can't imagine if you're in the military and you decide to have bottom surgery. What the hell is wrong with you? I mean, if you want to be your true, authentic self, go ahead, but you still want to be in the military where you have to dilate every day or every week? How are you supposed to do that in the middle of the field? What are you supposed to do? Shove a stick up there? I don't freaking know.
Of somebody that should be doing it. I don't mind somebody who is actually on hormones going there, because there's a lot of people. I mean, people take PTSD medications overseas. They actually take 6 months of medication with them. So a full out
What if your medication needs to be refrigerated like diabetic medication? What if, let's just say hypothetically, what if your medication needs to be refrigerated like Trulicity? That's a diabetic medication. What if it needs to be refrigerated? Then you can't take 6 months worth of medication. You can't even take a week's worth of medication.
ban, I don't necessarily support, because I think that everybody in the military, as long as you can do your job, you can go in there and nobody really cares. But it is
I care. I care who's fighting for my country.
those times when, if you can't perform your job, that becomes an issue. You talk about with HIV, actually, most people don't even realize this. If you contract HIV while you're in, you can stay in a
Yeah.
non-deployable job.
Right. And then also, if we want to just get super real, you
I didn't
have
hear
the
that.
trans suicide rate. And if you really want to compound that by the veteran suicide rate, that's not exactly a concoction for very positive results. So I see how a trans
Not literally and figuratively.
ban could actually benefit us. And Lord knows I'm not trying to get drafted. So yeah, I'm all good with that.
Ones who are frustrated with thinning lips, the ones who want to get rid of those vertical lines around their mouth, and even the ones who are just
I think it's very discriminatory to keep trans people out of the military. We pay our bills here, we pay our taxes here, we are Americans. We deserve to serve this country as well. However, you all did raise some great points about the concern and safety of trans people. And I do agree that something does need to be done about that to protect us. Who's protecting us in the military? Who is?
I mean, if you're even diagnosed with like mild social anxiety, you're not eligible to enter the military. If you have
Honey, who's protecting you in the military? You're supposed to be the ones protecting us. I understand everybody, like every organization, you should have, like a protection. Like you should protect your people, you should protect your own. You should have like a union, you should have a, like HR, you should have, all that kind of stuff. And every organization, you know, everyone should have that. The military, the Navy, et cetera, et cetera. They should all have like an HR or something like that, to protect their own people and all that kind of stuff. But baby, you are the ones protecting us. Don't go on about who's protecting us. Who's protecting the trans people in the military? Baby, you're protecting us. Focus on that if you're in the military.
like a crooked left, pinky toe, you're not eligible. So discriminatory, I mean, that word sounds pretty in today's climate very much like, oh no, discrimination, but it's not always bad. Sometimes it's for the safety, and it's like, when it comes to the military and when it comes to keeping America safe, that has priority or anyone's feelings being hurt.
Discrimination is discrimination, and I don't think
It's
there's
not always a
any other
negative
way
thing,
around
though.
it.
Well,
It's
when-
still
Discrimination
when you
is
say
not
That
always
doesn't mean it's
protect
negative, though.
our troops over there while they're over there, you're talking or protect them before so they can get in.
Both. It is important to protect all trans people in the military.
Well, we can't waste
And so what if the best
resources
way to protect them
protecting
is not putting them in a Middle East with Muslims that are
Exactly.
going to kill them?
Well, I just want to interject your point about suicide. So, as somebody who has worked in community service with community members directly, a lot of their suicide issues actually revolve around access to finances. And the military is one of the highest employers of transgender people. So, we actually see the suicide rate drop. And
Well,
for me
that's a good
personally,
point, but it's one of the highest employers of anybody.
But if you're suicidal
true.
and you go into a job that has a high likelihood of PTSD, causing PTSD and all these other issues, then it becomes a big issue because then you already have one mental illness, and then you're compounding it with more.
And when you're
Thank you.
on, a very strict regimen of, if you're trans and if you're really trans, and we can get into who's really trans later because I'm gonna have a
Yeah,
lot
I
to say
want to
about
know what
that.
you're
But
talking about
if you're gonna
that.
be on hormones, right? You're not always gonna have access to those drugs when you're deployed and when you're in those situations. That's why I say if you're, a line cook or something, if you're whatever, that's one thing.
Right.
But if we're talking about combat, you're not exactly gonna have access to your testosterone blockers and your
How do you
estrogen.
know that? Because medical
Because they
care
don't have
is
those kind of
covered in the
pharmacies in the Middle
medical care
East.
is covered in the military, so they should have access to that. So that is false information.
Not
and
necessarily.
also,
No,
you guys
you
are
know,
forgetting
Right,
the fact. Well,
Blossom,
hold on.
you're
You guys
deluded.
have all forgotten the fact of what is the flip side for these transgender individuals that are signing up for the military and they're taken out, and that was their life plan. Where are they supposed to work, and where is their employment supposed to be?
No, I
Because the
agree
mental
that
illness that
I
happens
agree it's
through homelessness
horrible.
and the lack of
I
resources
agree
that
it's
come.
horrible.
So
Correct.
that is also
They
the flip
actually,
side of that. So if folks
but they
don't
didn't
have,
kick
hold
anybody
on one
out.
second, but if they don't have access to a job that could offer them
Hit your
support
drum.
and research and access to medication, access to benefits, lifetime benefits, that's something that most transgender people in any sector of any
So do you want
job
an answer to your question, or are you just going to round? Because I can answer. You said, what about those people that were kicked out? I actually think it's bad if you are someone who was in it and you really are, because just like, Sarah, and I've met many trans veterans that I've paid respect to publicly on social media, and I think that's amazing, actually. So if you're kicked out and it was once, the norm
But
that
what's
you
the
could,
resources you're
I'm
offering
speaking
them, though?
though. If you're kicked out and it once was the norm for you to participate in the military, that's sad. But at the same time, if that is what is determined for the ultimate safety and effectiveness of the military, nothing should come before that.
Blair, have you
Thank
ever
Because the
you.
worked
second
directly
bomb,
with
because the
trans
second
people?
bomb,
Have you ever worked
I am
directly
right
with?
now.
Blair works with trans people. She has a like multi-million platform, like multi-million follower platform. Like she reaches millions of people a day. And a lot of those people could be trans. Probably are. And she's working with trans people on this panel.
Now, I am right now.
No,
We're surrounded
directly
by
in
them.
services in terms of nonprofits and
Sir, she's
actually
a
getting
trans person.
clientele.
She's not
That's my
actually-
grassroots.
entire
She is
career.
not a grassroots
Not
person
grassroots.
because truth be told, a lot of our
What does that
community
even mean?
is in grassroots.
You don't have to be grassroots to help people.
Have you ever had a
Nonprofit
client list of
organizations that are
transgender people that you
trans-led. Hold
actually
on just
took
a
care
second.
of?
Hold on just a second.
Took care of them, like what, like paid their
Trans-led
bills? No,
I'm
I don't
sorry,
Offering them
think so.
services.
See, what these people want is people like on those ridiculous people on TikTok who are like, ask any trans person in your life what they need. Wash their car, do their clothes, do their dishes, give them $5. That's what these people are. They want everything done for them because they're lazy, selfish people. I'm not saying that it's because they're trans. It's because they're lazy, selfish people. They just happen to be trans. And they use being trans to get what they want.
Getting them through
I've
services.
helped a lot of trans people in my life.
Trans-led
Yes.
organizations that are ran by trans people. I really want to see what you've done for those organizations because I don't see any of y'all on the front line.
I'm on
The front line.
Sarah has literally been this woman right here has literally been on the front line. So watch your mouth, Blossom.
Like,
fighting
what are
against
you
the-
talking about?
I'm
I've
on the front
dedicated.
line.
Hold on. I've dedicated my entire life to in my own way, and you can disagree with that because we all have our vehicles and our methods towards
Absolutely.
promoting trans acceptance and the ultimate progression of the quality of life of trans people. I've dedicated my entire life to that.
Yes, she
Right?
has.
I access millions of people every single month on all my social
Mhm.
media. And I have people reaching out all the time saying that I've saved them
So
from,
what are
just
you
like we
physically
mentioned,
doing,
suicide.
What are you
Blair?
physically
doing?
Physically.
That is the point.
Have you ever
Okay,
taken
so
on a
here's the
client
thing.
load? Have you ever
like, a
had
Just because she's not physically there, like just because she's not physically sitting in front of me doesn't mean she's not helping.
Here's the
someone come
thing.
to you
I'm sorry, do
homeless
you
and
have
give
like,
them
do
resources?
I'm
you have
sure
like
you
a
guys
trans
feel very-
humanitarian youth fund
You guys
or
are asking
something?
questions and you have no interest in the answer. I'm sure you guys are very, very proud of the
Because you're
fact that you
going
can
around in
walk.
circles, Blair. That
The- Blair's going in circles. Blossom's glowing in circles. Blossom is like going around a corral like a damn horse, just walking around a corral endlessly.
that's what we're saying.
How could it be a circle when I haven't answered the question at all because you keep speaking? I'm sure you guys are very proud that you can enter a building and work with 25 people at a time. I access millions
Oh,
every
that is
month.
not.
Well, it's all about the self-fulfillment and self-validation. That's all that's what they like and that's what they want. Is they're like, I'm able to help these people physically and I'm able to write down on paper these resources for them and then give them these resources. That's what they're all about. Is they're all about helping people physically like that. And to each their own, to each their own. If you're helping someone, God bless you. Great. But let other people help people in their own way. Don't knock their methods of helping people.
Not
Babe,
what
that's what I
nonprofit work
do.
is.
You know, you
are
can.
It's really
so
disappointing that you would
disconnected
ever
from that.
equate
This is
community
She is
disappointing,
so
services.
disconnected.
This is disappointing, actually.
This is very.
It's
she's very
disappointing that you would
disconnected.
disrespect all of the people that are in community service and all of these social workers that actually do help
Correct.
trans people.
She's
And it's
not
really
doing that.
disappointing that you guys are
Okay.
disrespecting what the fuck I do.
Exactly.
Right?
When you say something about what is grassroots, that's the problem that I feel that some
Well, you're
trans
using a
influencers are
metaphor for
disconnected.
something that's
That is not a
professional.
They're gonna
metaphor.
speak in platitudes
That
the
is
whole
a
time. That's
tangible
what they're gonna do.
resource organization. Because if you, this is where y'all's privilege come in. Because if y'all don't need
My privilege?
services,
My
from
content is a
trans-
resource.
if you do not need
First
services
of all,
from
ma'am, don't come for my
nonprofits
privilege.
that are trans-led, you have
I was raised by
privilege
drug
and you
addicts.
have
I have
access.
HIV.
I'm sorry.
I create the resources.
I would rather
I create
work
the
with
resources. My
detransitioners
content
than
is a
I
trans
guess.
resource.
people. So we're gonna work with detransitioners who actually need our help.
But we're not
Hello.
talking about military.
Oh my
so-
God.
Give us another one, but I'm gonna give you one more chance.
It's the condescension for me, you know.
I will take a step back and let other people have an
I feel
opinion.
like
Oh, wow.
so like Blair said, like when you want to go into the military, like they gotta like check you out and like, are you fit to go into the military, whatever. For that reason, I don't feel like a ban on trans people in the military is necessary because I feel like who's ready to go to combat and who's ready to go in, like they'll get in. I think there are people who are like able to do that, maybe people who aren't. And I feel like that will be determined without just a ban across the board. And yeah.
So it wasn't actually a full ban, though. That's what people don't realize. Okay,
You
so
can still enlist.
nobody got kicked out of the military. They didn't kick
Yeah.
a single person out of the military who came forward and had gender dysphoria. 2, it was actually easy. It's more open to serve under the ban than it was under Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yeah.
Okay, so you could actually be a trans person and present however you wanted off duty. You could go to a ball in a dress and nobody cared, and they couldn't kick you out. And
Wow.
serving in the military, it's not a right. They can disqualify you for any reason, physical, anything. People get kicked out all the time because they can't pass PT tests.
Right.
And overseas, yeah, you don't necessarily have access to refrigerators for your testosterone or any of that other stuff. So if you're taking
What'd I say?
injections, it's a lot different.
I'm supposed to refrigerate it?
I don't know. I don't take
And
testosterone.
that's gonna melt in the
Hormones
middle of
are
the
not
sun.
always-
Believe
hormones
that.
are
That
not always-
estradiol is gonna be
female
blue
hormones
goo.
are not always refrigerated. Let's just make that clear.
Well, my concern would be that, like,
Oh, that's
who's
so-
joining the
so cute.
military not to serve in the country, but only to get the cheaper drugs and the
Hello.
paid for surgery. And I don't want that trans person
Okay,
defending
who's
our
joining the
country.
military because they
Thank
got a
you.
woman pregnant and they just need to pay their bills. There's so
I
many
don't
different
want that
reasons why
person
people
either,
join the
because I
military.
want
And also,
dedicated
there are
people.
easier
I want
ways to get
dedicated people that want to defend the country that I live in.
There are
and
easier
protect
ways to get drugs.
us.
There are easier ways to get drugs, and to join the military, that's a big commitment to
Let's
get
just
drugs.
put it this
to-
way.
to-
There are
to
far
Do it
less
for high school too,
debilitating
or
things that will
education.
disqualify you from access to the military than trans. And if you
Yep.
want to put it on a scale, trans is one of those things that for a lot of people is quite debilitating, whether it's mentally, physically, whatever. If you
Mhm.
have, social anxiety, if you have depression, any of these things that are less mentally taxing than gender dysphoria, all those things, then why is it that we should have like a go around because we're trans? I go with what the generals say. I go with what the people
Yeah.
at the top say. This is what is the most effective way to have our military.
Just not General Milley.
I just really
Just
hope
not
that the
General
people
Milley.
at the
No,
top
not
that you're
him. You know what I mean?
just
It's
really hope
levels
that
to
the
that
people-
too.
I just really hope that the people at the top that you're referring to aren't transphobic, because let's be clear of the isms that are in the
God.
military.
Man, we live
that
in
a lot of us
America.
face.
People are allowed
Excuse me,
to
I'm
be.
speaking. Do not interrupt a Black trans woman when she's speaking.
Ooh. Why does she bring her race into it?
You've
Let's be
interrupted
very
me
clear.
hella
When it comes
times.
to when
Hella
it comes to
times.
isms,
Yeah,
they
she's been
interrupted
okay,
you
interrupting
saying
if you
use
are
your skin
black,
tone
if
to
you
say you
are
could
black,
interrupt
if
her.
you are black and
That's
trans
amazing.
and you want to go into the military, I am quite sure that my experience would not look the same as y'all's. And if we can't wake that up, then we're really being
They don't
complicit.
look at your race.
I don't think your
But you-
skin tone makes any difference.
Well,
As somebody,
yes, it does.
No,
Well,
as
I'm
somebody,
sorry.
no, as somebody who's
But it
serving in the
doesn't.
military,
For you to
as
tell a
somebody who-
black
no,
person that
as-
is so
as somebody who's
problematic,
serving,
for
as
you
So
to
why
tell
do
a
you have
person
to
of
put
color
black
here,
in front of it?
because I am,
Yeah,
this
why
is
do
my
you put black
experience
in
and this is
front of
my
it?
reality. First of all,
It has nothing
that
to
is
do with
so
your transness,
disrespectful
though.
to tell a person
I'm gonna
of
have an
color, a
aneurysm.
black person, how they should feel. How dare you sit up here
Okay,
and
well,
say
No,
that?
it's disrespectful
as
for you
somebody
to
who's
tell a white
serving-
person
Hold on,
that.
just
You
a second. Let me
screamed
finish
at
my
him,
point.
and you
I
were
did not
skin-
scream
yes,
at a
you
point.
did.
No,
No, you're
you
being
wanted me to come
disrespectful.
back.
Her
Rewind the
attitude.
tape.
You
You
wanted me
screamed.
here, and I'm
You
here.
screamed.
So what you
Rewind
gonna
the
do?
tape, that was good.
You wanted me here, so I'm here.
Replay.
You in
Right, so
particular.
be-
We just
so
want
be
you to
So
calm
let's
down
go.
and speak like
No,
a
in
it's
person.
not my-
particular, what
it's
are you
not my
talking
fault.
about?
It's not my fault that
pause.
y'all don't understand respect.
Let's pause.
You're
Oh
interrupting
my God.
everything.
Can you please stop?
Okay.
We're good.
You need to calm down.
No,
We're
you
gonna
do,
change
honey.
the rules.
My God, someone get a Xanax for
Okay,
her.
the rules
Keep
are,
it
let's-
cute, girl. Keep it real cute.
Oh,
Your
that's
bodyguard's
inappropriate,
outside,
but the rest
keep
of
it
shit
real
isn't.
cute, ma'am.
Okay.
Did she just threaten Blair? Because I've heard whispers on the internet that she threatens Blair.
The rules are you cannot speak when somebody else is speaking.
Fair.
Okay?
Aw.
You haven't found a middle ground. That's okay.
I think we did.
Okay?
I feel like there was a little bit
Yeah,
mixed in there.
Yeah, I agree with what
That's
y'all were
fine.
saying. It wasn't really like I thought it was great.
So
or
imagine
was
when we
competitive.
disagree. That'll be
Okay,
fun.
I feel like it was really interesting hearing your perspective about being in the military. And I don't know if there's really like a true middle ground found, but I feel like
Yeah.
I have like a better understanding of kind of where you're coming from with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of points make sense. And it's also an issue that is hard to get a definitive answer and agreement on.
Everybody doesn't have the same struggle. And that does include in the military. Some people in our community have to go through much more extremes than others. And so for me, my question becomes, how are they being taken care of?
Talking about
especially when a
black
trans
people.
person comes out in the military. Yeah, we have these things enacted, but that doesn't mean that in reality and in physical time that they're being treated under what is in the law that's supposed to protect them. So that's where I'm coming from or whatever, because reality and what's on paper are two different things.
She's
But
talking
they
about black
are. So
people.
this is again the culture of the military. This is a debate that we have as civilians that the military doesn't have. Okay,
Exactly.
just plain and simple. If you can do your job,
Mhm.
nobody cares who you are, what you do, what your extracurricular activities outside of the military are. All they care is that they can count on the person to the left and right of them. And again, like I said before, in the very beginning, if you can't deploy and you can't go do your job, then there's really not a big reason for you to be there.
And to agree
Exactly.
with your point, I'm not in the military, nor am I a military general, but I trust that military generals know how to get their troops deployment ready. And if someone is able to go through all the rigorous steps, take out the trans, but they've been able to meet medical, health, all of the hoops that need to be met, I don't see any reason to take away someone's opportunity to serve this country and to be proud of serving this country, because being American is something to be proud of.
Yeah, and like the trans ban didn't actually do that. Like I said before, you just couldn't go actually like take hormones and transition while you were in, and there was a lot different because I served in 2010 to 2011 before Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, so I know what
Once
it was
again,
like
thank you
before
for
that
your
as well.
service,
And
Sarah.
I totally agree with what you're saying. So
Why
there's
I'm
some
gonna
middle ground.
say that, why I'm
Let's
gonna
go,
say
people.
no, is schools shouldn't include trans conversations in sex ed because children don't need to be brainwashed, and they don't need to be confused about who they are and what they are. They just need to be a kid. They just need to run around, and if they wanna be a dinosaur, just let them be a dinosaur. Don't slap a label on them, though. Don't be like, "Okay, they're identifying as a dinosaur now." Don't do that.
Sex ed.
Join our Middle Ground Patreon to watch this exclusive prompt.
It's okay for minors to get top
Absolutely not.
surgery.
Really?
You guys waited on that?
That's pretty vile.
Absolutely not.
I feel like the vibe is like like as someone who had top surgery and went on hormones, like it's a very emotionally intense experience. I think in terms of like minors getting surgery, like the reason why I'm not like no to that is because I feel like maybe someone's like 17 or something. I honestly feel like it is a really intense surgery, but I feel like if somebody's like 17 or like late 16 and like feels like it's right for them, I mean, like people are really different. I know for me, like top surgery when I was like 16 would have been like so good and it would have literally like saved my spinal cord from like
Hmm.
binding all the time. That's why I'm like, yeah, like I feel like in instances like it can make sense.
So I'm not a trans man, so I don't have the experience or whatnot, but I do think that it has to be done safely. There is a process when it comes to having these types of gender affirming surgeries. You know what I'm saying? Talking with your parents and then going to endocrinologists and going through therapy to make sure this is right for
All of
you.
that I agree with. If you need top surgery, if you need it, and by need it, I mean, like, if you're truly suicidal. You know? Like, if you truly cannot leave the house, cannot talk to people, cannot function in daily life, then I understand the need for something like top surgery or the need for something like cosmetic surgery to help you be the best version of yourself. Bottom surgery, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't care how much dysphoria it gives you. No. If my child came to me and said, "Mommy, I feel like a" if my child was a if my child was a girl and came to me and said, "Mommy, I feel like a boy. I wanna get my breast chopped off." And I first of all, I'd say absolutely not, because you can't understand because your frontal cortex is not developed enough. You are not developed enough to realize that you might want children one day. Because I never thought I wanted children. I really thought I never wanted children. And now it's the one thing I want in the world. And I want to do it naturally, but I'm terrified to do it naturally. Um, Medically, I'm terrified to do it naturally. And I would hate to rob a child of a beautiful experience of giving birth to a child, of having a child, grow inside them, of being able to feed their child, breastfeed their child. I would hate to take that away from my daughter if I ever had a daughter, just because they felt like a boy. Just because this flavor of the month is I feel like a boy. Meanwhile, next month it'll be I feel like a superhero. Or the next month they'll be like, I feel like Cinderella or a pumpkin or something like that. I don't freaking know. But, you know, I I just don't believe in it. I don't believe in it because kids, they're all over the place. And, especially kids with ADHD. Oh my god, which apparently every kid has now. I have it, and so I just I really don't wanna rob a child, any child, of the chance of giving life to this world.
People have a choice to their autonomy. Now, I know that everybody does not,
Yeah.
but those that do or whatnot should choose with the right medical
Yes.
education.
Yeah.
They should choose with
Mhm.
safety and with full understanding of what is a benefit and what may not be a
Exactly.
benefit.
I agree with a caveat that there does need to be some sort of process, which there is, by the way,
Yeah.
in place.
Yes, absolutely.
Sometimes there's a slip through. Yes, things happen because, again, as I said earlier, this is a big world. But to, again, negate people the ability to walk through a door that you have walked through, I'm going to say this again, and then close it behind you is a little bit of a slap in the face for anybody who's seeking transition.
Yeah.
And as somebody who has experienced top surgery and also waited quite a bit of time, a lot of severe damage actually was created to my rib cage. That my wife, who is half my size, actually has the same size rib cage in the back as mine. And these are permanent damage to my body because I binded for about 8 years, and there's even still issues that I have with breathing and certain issues that I face that unfortunately, if I had that surgery a lot earlier, I would have a better posture. I'd have a lot of pain that is not within my body
Did
that
you bind correctly? Or did you bind for longer than you were supposed to? Because that would create problems. And if you did, you brought that on yourself.
I have to deal with on a daily basis, while simultaneously the idea that, I get maybe under 16 top surgery would be something that would possibly even make me a little
A
uncomfortable, but I
little?
also
We're talking about 12 and 14-year-olds. A little? That makes you a little uncomfortable? What's wrong with you?
know that I was homeless at 16, paying my own rent, and left my home at 16 and had to live my life as an adult very early. So I was
And
able to
that's a
make those
shame, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
decisions for myself, but I think it's weird that others can't seem to see that I could make a medical decision for myself when I had to physically take care of myself. And I
Because
look
you're
at
still a child in the eyes of the law. You're still a child. You're a child in the eyes of the law. You are a dependent in the eyes of a law in the eyes of the law. You might have been emancipated, but you are a child. You still can't drink, you still can't get a tattoo, you still can't smoke cigarettes, and you still can't serve your country. When are we gonna add trans and top surgery to that list. I'm not saying you can't be trans until you're 18, 21, but you can't have top surgery or bottom surgery until you're 21. Because until you're an adult, you can't mess up your life.
Some of these younger kids, and there's a sense of jealousy there and excitement for them at the same time because they now have access to memories and being in the space and being in a comfortable body that, I had a lot of isolation growing up in my childhood because I didn't feel comfortable to present in a female space or a male space. I was isolated constantly from school, from the outside world, from my family. And my transition, my top surgery has done nothing but take physical pain off my body, especially with as large chested as I was and having to bind for as many years as I did.
Do you think you'd be happier as a
Oh,
boy?
Jesus.
I don't think any minor should be having life-altering elective
Thank you,
surgery
Sarah.
or life-altering elective medicalization, period. And
Blair's
so
like,
when I work on bills across the country that do ban this for minors,
good.
there's a couple things I point out. I point out that I don't think a 16-year-old female who wants breast implants should be able to get that either.
That is a good point.
When we look at what we allow minors to do, like surgeries and stuff like that, they're not life-saving. They're not, if you don't get it, you're not
Yep.
going to die. It's not like getting having appendicitis and having to get your appendix
Mhm.
removed or anything like that. It's elective. I think that's the key
That's
point
true.
here.
Agreed.
My thing about surgery, I'm actually vehemently against surgery, like all of it, top surgery, bottom surgery, all of it. Particularly because you need
Yep.
your genitals. Like it's just that simple.
Hello.
You know, you have these people now who have non-functioning fake penises and vaginas that, you know, you've had issues like, for instance, Richie had where like your urethra folds in half and then you can't pee no more.
This is
Oh,
about
are you against
top
top
surgery, yeah.
surgery too? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just surgery
That's
in general. I don't think that that's necessarily like you said, it's not like you have appendicitis. It's not like you've got like a bone spur. It's, you know, like you don't.
I disagree with
not
that because
having
I was in
surgery.
physical pain, and the moment that I got that top surgery, the pain was
You
Well,
did
immediate.
that to yourself, honey.
It's
Yeah.
not. That means you needed a breast reduction, my friend.
No, it's just
No,
binding, dude.
that's from
Binding
binding
goes
in
crazy.
general. It
I mean, I
causes some
binded for 8
issues.
years. I know, like it
I know,
sucks,
but like if you just keep binding, like honestly, like my ribs are like, I'm like, ew, I hate my ribs. Like they're all like messed up.
Well,
Is
you
that an
get your
issue
body
with
type.
safety of binding though? I'm actually curious
Yeah,
about
like
this.
honestly,
it's the
but
safety
the
of,
thing
of
is
how
too,
they
like
teach you to
I
bind?
think it comes with like the size of your chest. So like I had a big chest, so like
Same.
I had it was the only way. You know what I mean?
Same.
And I did try and like
I don't
bind
think they
like
binded correctly. I'm just gonna put that out there right now. I don't think they binded correctly. I think they bound for longer than they were supposed to, and that created more problems with their rib cage. I'm just gonna say it right now. I think they did it excessively.
safely, and I did buy like reputable like binder brands, but it is a lot when you're doing it for a really long time
I
and
used to wear it
ultimately
for 3
like
days straight.
I know, me too. Like,
And
and that's what's like you're not
was,
supposed to,
was
but
your
like
was your doctor telling you that that's not safe because you're not even supposed to wear it
Yeah,
what,
of
24
course.
hours?
My doctor's
straight,
old
right?
school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, and I
6
did
to
have
8
to go
hours is
through like for top surgery and testosterone. Like I had to go through like a really big process, and I think that's my thing is like
He
instead of
just
an
said
age,
6 to 8 hours is how long you're supposed to wear it, and Andrew, this young man in the red shirt, just said, "I used to wear it for, like, 3 days straight." Maybe that's why you have back problems, honey.
thing, I think there's like like there should be a process. You should
Maybe that's why
have
I
to
have
like
rib problems.
live as that gender and be seeking care and be having like a therapist for long term and a psychiatrist for long term and an endocrinologist for long term. And like it's really like specific to the person and I think would be like really rare anyway. But that's just my stance.
But they say that you should have a psychiatrist, you should have an endocrinologist, you should have a doctor, you should have all these things long term. Meanwhile, you walk in to a doctor's office and you say, "I'm trans," and they give you a prescription for hormones right there and then.
That I agree with to an extent.
This is definitely the prompt that I am the most passionate about because I think there are few things more vile, more irresponsible, more, dangerous than saying a child can consent to permanently removing a body part that serves an extremely
Thank
important function.
you.
Detransitioners all over the country can never breastfeed their children if they can even have them, because if they did other things, that can stop them from having kids at all,
Exactly.
right?
Like what is that drug? Lupron? Lupron that sterilizes people, that chemically castrates people, and we put children on that to pause puberty. Are you kidding me? And we wonder why we're sterilizing a generation. Well, at least I wonder why we're sterilizing a generation. And I don't understand why more people don't wonder why. But uh, it's just it is so dangerous. It's so vile. It it's horrible.
Right? The idea that a child can consent to a sex
And
change,
that's it.
to
Children cannot consent. Children can't consent to having sex. Children can't consent to having, you know, ca they can't consent to having medical or medical, uh, surgeries, like for me, when I was a child, I couldn't consent to having my tonsils removed. My parents had to sign the permission slip because I was a child. I couldn't consent. So anyway, here's the thing about that. It's just God, it's just so sad because ah, God, I can't even.
gender affirming surgery. If you believe that, there's really nothing that you can believe they can't consent to, right? Because that's pretty extreme. That's permanent body modification.
And here's the thing. Here's what I was about to say. I lost my train of thought, but here's what I'm about to say. We don't tell people who have depression, who have eating disorders, "Oh, that's okay." Like, we don't tell people like, Nikocado avocado, "Oh, that's okay." And the people who do say that's okay, you're fucked up. Like, we don't tell people like me, "That's okay." We don't tell people like me, "Oh, you look great." "I can't believe I'm about to do this." We don't say that this looks good. Right? I know it doesn't. So we say this if if we say this doesn't look good and we tell someone like me to get help and move your fat fucking ass, then why would we let children like what here's okay. If I'm a person who keeps on eating, and like let's say I was a child and I kept on eating, and I was like this way, which I was when I was a child. I slimmed out around high school and college, but then I got fat again. But anyway, why would we tell someone like me that it's okay to be the way I am? We don't. People tell me, "You're fat. Do something about it." Or people like the opposite of me, like Eugenia Cooney. We tell people like her to go get help. We tell people like me to go get help. Why aren't we telling children who have these thoughts of, "I think I'm the opposite gender," to go get help?
under the best circumstances. So you want to move aside all the complications, all the things you can't do, the sterilization, not being able to feed your kids. You can even set that aside. Just the permanent body modification. I mean, you have to be so demented to believe that a child fully understands. I heard a few conversations about, well, if the child fully understands, they don't. They don't, because they're children.
I'm
That's like how
21
being
and
a
I still
child
don't
works.
understand.
17-year-old, like if a 17-year-old's like living as male for like 5
The
years,
prompt was
it's
about
like,
minors, and
yeah, but a
12-year-olds
17-year-old is
are
a
getting
minor.
top surgery. So it's easy to say, well, if it's 17-year-olds, okay, well,
In my state, that's actually
there's a
legal
nuanced
age.
conversation about even 17-year-olds, I guess, because the age of consent in some places is lower, but that's not what's happening, right? It's 12-year-olds.
When we talk about minors, it's like, what age range are we really talking about here?
Anyone
Because
under
the
18.
thing is, when we talk about detransitioners or whatnot, all I hear is a lot of
I would even
regret,
say
right?
anyone under 21.
Right? Regret that they got these surgeries, regret of the complications, regret, and that's fine. I'm not taking away anybody's experience because these things do happen. But let's also remember, again, there is a process. Now, I have a lot of empathy for those detransitioners that have gone through the process and they are suffering.
But
I
it's
do
not
have
just
empathy for
detrans
that.
people. It's
But
not just
but that's
detrans
where
people.
I'm just talking about in the conversation for this particular conversation. And I understand what you're saying because you're absolutely right. There are more people
Even
that are
among
doing that,
adults, we all
but-
do different things in our
but-
transition. Some of us
correct.
want bottoms, some of us don't, some of us want tops, some of us don't.
I
So
understand,
you
but-
need a lot of time as an adult to figure out what you want to do.
But see, the thing is, though, some adults don't even understand what they want to do.
Exactly.
So
So
that's the
how
kind
can
of
a
thing.
child?
But see,
She just said it. Blossom just said it. She just said it. Some adults don't even know what they want. So how can a child know what they want?
the
I
children,
wanna
that's
touch
wait a
on
minute.
one thing you said there.
Let's not underestimate the power of these kids today. Okay, they are very much more educated because they have much more resources and access than we did coming up.
Okay,
let's-
so let's break that down. So children are more educated today, and we shouldn't underestimate children today because they have more resources. What, like TikTok? Like Facebook? Instagram, Snapchat, Reddit, Google? Ooh, Google. Wow. I mean, honestly, just because people have TikTok, which is probably where they got their gender dysphoria from, or the idea to be trans from, just because you see the world through TikTok doesn't mean we shouldn't underestimate the kids because they have resources. Ooh, what? Because they have apps that can do the math for them instead of them actually having to figure out how to do math. Maybe that's why children can't do math, is because we invented an app that can do math for them. Jesus Christ.
Let's be
So
very
they're
clear about
advanced
that.
and they can
when we
consent.
talk
Who
about
else says that?
detransitioners, that has been the main topic here or whatnot, because we
But
want to
it's
bring
not now.
detransitioners in to the room, so there's a space. Thank you.
To your point about the reason why I'm against it is because, like you said, the children need to go through the proper steps, the parents, the doctors. But in the state of California, if you, as a parent, tell your minor, no, you're not getting this, I'm not affirming your gender, I'm taking your kids away, and California is going to raise your kids for you. So
Canada
how's
too.
that?
Canada too.
That's not right.
That's not right.
We also know that like all those safeguards that you're talking about, they're not happening.
Yeah, that's
They're
what I'm
not
saying.
happening at all.
California will take your
we
kids.
know because there was a whistleblower out of St. Louis, and this isn't some conservative whistleblower. She was married to a trans man, and she considers herself queer. So she blew the whistle and said that they had an in-house doctor. If you couldn't find a affirming therapist to sign off on the form, they would pencil whip it.
But do you believe that it should happen? Do you believe there should be a process when it comes to medical transition?
No,
We have to
there's no
stop
right
it. So,
process for
yeah.
kids to hack
Oh
off
no,
their
I was asking
breasts.
her, honey. I'm sorry.
No,
I was
no.
asking
Well,
her.
I answered because
No,
I'm
you
here in
don't.
the room. So
I love
No,
Blair.
okay, thank you.
I feel like personally, like if we're talking about like a 12-year-old getting top surgery, like to me that's just like medical malpractice because I know for me, like to get top surgery, like I can only get it at 18 because my insurance covered it at 18. But I had to start that process like long before. Like even hormones was a long process. So I think there's like an area of literal like medical malpractice because no like kid at that age should be getting that in my opinion because you do not know. But I do think there are instances where like a 16 or 17-year-old like could get it. And I don't know if that means like banning like below 16 or like whatever, but
So in the UK, it was the I can't remember what it was. It's the reason why they're shutting down the Tavistock clinic in the UK though, is because they found that when you start a child on hormone or on puberty blockers, then hormones, it's basically a foregone conclusion that they're going to end up having surgery. It puts them on a path to it's a sunk cost fallacy.
I just, again, I don't understand this obsession with
Obsession.
others people's children.
It's about caring about kids.
I'm talking. Oh my God.
It's
Get it
obsession.
together.
I have it together.
I love Blair.
Yo, the obsession with the conservatives about other people's kids. If it is your child, it is your choice what you do with your kid.
Just to talk about some of
Maybe we're concerned that we're sterilizing a generation.
who's at 16 and their level of consent in the state of California, from my understanding, someone who's 16 can also drop out of high school, which would severely affect their life. And they have access to that decision if they want to,
That's
because
their decision. If you want to drop out of high school at 16, that's your decision, babe. That's your decision to not move forward in life.
they want to get into the job market or whatever their reason is, but they have that option to make that choice at 16. I will agree with you that someone at 12, I'd be uncomfortable with somebody at 12 years old getting surgery completely, because there's still a lot of the world for them to learn about themselves, how to navigate
Well,
it,
thank you
etc.,
for admitting that.
But for us to have access to be able to drop out of high school if we wanted to, and make such
The children, wait a minute, let's not underestimate the power of these kids today, okay? They are very much more educated because they have much more resources and access than we did coming up.
Okay, so let's break that down. So children are more educated today, and we shouldn't underestimate children today because they have more resources. What, like TikTok? Like Facebook? Instagram, Snapchat, Reddit, Google. Ooh, Google. Wow. I mean, honestly, just because people have TikTok, which is probably where they got their gender dysphoria from, or the idea to be trans from, just because you see the world through TikTok doesn't mean we shouldn't underestimate the kids because they have resources. Ooh, what? Because they have apps that can do the math for them instead of them actually having to figure out how to do math. Maybe that's why children can't do math, is because we invented an app that can do math for them. Jesus Christ.
Let's be
So
very
they're
clear about
advanced
that.
and they can
when we
consent.
talk
Who
about
else says that?
detransitioners, that was been the main topic here or whatnot, because we
But
want to
it's
bring
not now.
detransitioners in to the room, so there's a space. Thank you.
To your point about the reason why I'm against it is because, like you said, the children need to go through the proper steps, the parents, the doctors. But in the state of California, if you, as a parent, tell your minor, no, you're not getting this, I'm not affirming your gender, I'm taking your kids away, and California is going to raise your kids for you. So
Canada
how's
too.
that?
Canada too.
That's not right.
That's not right.
We also know that like all those safeguards that you're talking about, they're not happening.
Yeah, that's
They're
what I'm
not
saying.
happening at all.
California will take your
we
kids.
know because there was a whistleblower out of St. Louis, and this isn't some conservative whistleblower. She was married to a trans man, and she considers herself queer. So she blew the whistle and said that they had an in-house doctor. If you couldn't find a affirming therapist to sign off on the form, they would pencil whip it.
But do you believe that it should happen? Do you believe there should be a process when it comes to medical transition?
No, there's no right process for kids to hack
Oh
off
no,
their
I was asking
breasts.
her, honey. I'm sorry.
No,
I was
no.
asking
Well,
her.
I answered. because
No,
I'm
you
here in the
don't.
room. So
I love
No,
Blair.
okay, thank you.
I feel like personally, like if we're talking about like a 12-year-old getting top surgery, like to me that's just like medical malpractice. Because I know for me, like to get top surgery, like I can only get it at 18 because my insurance covered at 18. But I had to start that process like long before. Like even hormones was a long process. So I think there's like an area of literal like medical malpractice because no like kid at that age should be getting that in my opinion because you do not know. But I do think there are instances where like a 16 or 17-year-old like could get it. And I don't know if that means like banning like below 16 or like whatever, but
So in the UK, it was the I can't remember what it was. It's the reason why they're shutting down the Tavistock clinic in the UK though, is because they found that when you start a child on hormone or on puberty blockers, then hormones, it leads. It's basically a foregone conclusion that they're going to end up having surgery. It puts them on a path to it's a sunk cost fallacy.
I just, again, I don't understand this obsession with
Obsession.
other people's children.
It's about caring about kids.
I'm talking. Oh my God.
It's
Get it
obsession.
together.
I have it together.
I love Blair.
Yo, the obsession with the conservatives about other people's kids. If it is your child, it is your choice what you do with your kid.
Just to talk about some of
Maybe we're concerned that we're sterilizing a generation.
who's at 16 and their level of consent in the state of California, from my understanding, someone who's 16 can also drop out of high school, which would severely affect their life. And they have access to that decision if they want to,
That's
because
their decision. If you want to drop out of high school at 16, that's your decision, babe. That's your decision to not move forward in life.
they want to get into the job market or whatever their reason is, but they have that option to make that choice at 16. I will agree with you that someone at 12, I'd be uncomfortable with somebody at 12 years old getting surgery completely, because there's still a lot of the world for them to learn about themselves, how to navigate
Well,
it,
thank you
etc.,
for admitting that.
But for us to have access to be able to drop out of high school if we wanted to, and make such a life-changing decision that could affect, you economically, socially, so many different ways. But then to say, you know what, you're not old enough to make this decision, for me, again, as somebody who was 16 and was in such a religious family and all the restrictions that I had, if I didn't have access to those things, I don't know if I would be here. And I've learned a lot through my transition and through my access. And I even grew up in the wild, wild west where everything was still on YouTube and we didn't really even have medical providers really even giving us guidance, and especially trans men. So I find it rather uncomfortable that we're able to make a 16-year-old be able to make that type of decision. An 18-year-old is allowed to go into service, but for some reason we can't give that same access to a kid to have that consciousness. Because I can tell you at 16, I knew who I was. I'm not at 12, not at 14, but 16, there's a certain level of consciousness and experience that you've experienced in society that you understand the pocket you fit in.
But just because other bad things happen doesn't mean that that is okay. It's like, so just because they can drop out of school means they should be able to cut their breasts off?
Is though, some adults don't even understand what they want to do.
Exactly. So how
She just said it.
But see,
She just said it. Blossom just said it. She just said it. Some adults don't even know what they want. So how can a child know what they want? Okay, everybody. That was my video, my part 1 video on trans conservatives versus trans liberals debate from Middle Ground Jubilee. And I will be putting up a part 2 for the rest of the debate. And I think we have 3 more prompts to go. And yeah. That was quite a lot. So if you like this, hit that like button. If you want more, hit subscribe. Make sure you comment on this video. You know what I like. Comment on this video what you think, your opinions, hashed out in the comments section. And, if you have a bone to pick with me, hash that out with me too. Anyway, I hope you like this video. Hit that notification bell and hasta la pasta, baby. Bye.
You don't wanna fuck with me.